Welcome to this episode of Pam Complains About a Book She's Read. We have a very cozy edition for today because my head hurts a lot and I'm very cold. I'm wearing two hoodies layered over each other and my head is trying to kill me, so you're in for a treat for this one. So, the book that this is going to be about is this beautiful work of art. I'm talking about the cover, nothing else. No, but it's this Payback's a Witch by Lana Harper. And this is an adult sapphic fantasy rom-com, kind of own fantasy witchy stuff. And to just give you a little overview of the plot, the main character, Emmy Harlow, she returns home to a witchy hometown after a decade to be a referee at some sort of Triwizard trivia tournament knockoff. And the reason she left a decade ago was because some dude broke her heart, and now it's the first time that she's actually back. And when she gets back, there's like this sexy Slavic witch she's really horny for, and that's pretty much what happens in this book. And then she, her best friend, and the sexy Slavic witch, who's a love interest, all bond together to like ruin this random dude's life, because why not? I'm going to talk about some general thoughts and impressions. I don't think I'm going to go very spoilery here. Like, I'm going to talk about general things, but nothing too specific. So if you don't mind, like, smaller spoilers, you can watch this. And if you don't want to know anything about the book, then why did you click on this? Like, this is literally a book. This is a video about this book. Like, I'm going to talk about it. So why would you, why? What's happening? I don't know. And before I get into this too much, let me just clarify that even though I really didn't enjoy this book, that doesn't mean that it's not a bad, that, you know, that it's a bad book or whatever. I just like complaining, and this gave me a lot of reason to complain. So that's why I'm doing this. Doesn't mean it's a bad book or no one should read it or no one should like it. It's just my personal experience of it, which I'm telling you guys about now. And this is also written in first-person perspective, which for some reason really irritated me. But like specifically in this book, I read another similar book this month. Let me actually... No, I cannot... Wait, where is it? Okay, it's right here. Lost Girls, which is also a revenge story about how girls bond together to ruin a dude's life. And it's also written in first-person perspective, but I didn't mind it here at all. And for some reason, it just really didn't work for me in this one. Maybe it's just because everything else around it also kind of annoyed me, so maybe that's got something to do with it. But yeah, if, you know, first person perspective, if that's something you don't like, then you probably also won't like this book. Well, let me actually start off with something positive, alright? Let's look at the cover. Do you see that? That is a really nice, beautiful cover, and that's also the reason I picked this up, because I was like, you know what? That is a pink and purple cover, which is witchy and like on black. Like maybe you can somehow tell, but purple and witchy stuff and black might be my color scheme. So I was like, damn, this is gonna be like made for me. It wasn't, because unfortunately this is also where any praise I have for this book ends. So let me get to my first point. The main characters in this book are supposed to be in their mid-20s. As I already told you, the main character left a decade ago after high school. So now she would be around like 25 to 27, I think. I've forgotten the actual age, but it's around that span. And, you know, this is a person in their mid to late 20s. And yet, they all act like teenagers. The entire premise of the book is that she is still mad at this guy who dumped her a decade ago when she was a teenager. And now she's like, cool, I guess I'll ruin his life with my friends because we can, apparently. Like, this is about high school matters, you know, they're petty because a boy was mean to them, and like, they're gonna make the entire thing about that. You're 25, go work. I can say this, okay? I'm also in my 20s, I'm not some young zoomer. I'm a middle-aged zoomer, okay? But yeah, this is about literal high school matters, but the people are supposed to be in their mid to late 20s. And also, the main character is so horny all the time. It's like a teenager being horny for their first love. Like, chill. And another thing I didn't like about this was the interactions between the characters. They just absolutely didn't do anything for me, and nearly every interaction seemed forced, and there was just, it just didn't feel like humans would talk to each other like that. Like, it just all seemed so strange. I did have maybe like one or two scenes in the entirety of this book, and it has like nearly 300 pages, I think, that I actually liked. Like one or two scenes, one or two points in dialogue where I was like, you know what, this actually evokes something in me emotionally other than pure unadulterated rage because I hate what I'm reading. And now I'm gonna get to like somewhat of a weird point that I have with this. It was that I could not get into this book at first, and I mean also not after that, but you know, we're gonna start so. I could not get into this book because the first around 5 or 6 chapters just seemed like a checklist. I couldn't actually get into what was happening plot-wise because all I could see was the author's intention. And I've never had that happen before or since in a book where it was like, oh, I can only see what the author's trying to do. Like, I'm pretty simple. Like, I don't really notice the artist's intention in a lot of works. So for me to not be able to see anything but was really strange. Like, it genuinely feels like a checklist. It's like, chapter 1, talk about the hometown. Chapter 2, talk about the main character, and then introduce the douche guy, and then introduce love interest, introduce best friend, introduce the plot of what was happening. And you know, like, every single chapter seemed to have like just that one point, and then that's it. And that was just, I don't know, I wish it would have not felt like that, but I also cannot really say how you would be able to do that differently, because this is the first time it's happened, and it's really weird. But, you know, I found that quite off-putting. So let me actually talk about the plot a bit, right? As you can already tell by now, I don't really care about the characters or their relationships. So what's up with the plot, right? Yeah, well, that was even more interesting to me. So the whole book is about how this one rich dude broke up with the main character a decade ago, and then recently betrayed her best friend by cheating on her with the love interest that the main character is going to have. So the three of them bond over how much he sucks, and they want to ruin his life. Because that seems like a healthy and appropriate response, right? You know, sure, why not? And they also try to justify this by saying that, you know, his family's business is running all of the other family's businesses out of the stuff, and it's bad for the economy what they're doing, and they need to be humbled, so really they're doing it for the sake of everyone. Sure, I guess.
Sure, Jan.
And so that dude's family has always been winning the tournament. And they're like, cool, so we'll just make sure he doesn't win. And that's going to be our master plan. Which just kind of sounds boring. Like, you're just going to make him lose the competition? Okay, I guess. And one of the characters jokingly mentions lifelong pubic lice hex. And you cannot tell me that this, like, throwaway line doesn't sound more fun and interesting than the plot of this book. Like, that actually sounds like a good time. This book was not a good time to me. When you talk about this, because I cannot be the only person to have read this and not share it with the world. So the author wanted a word that they could use in the same way that J.K. Rowling did muggle. So, you know, you don't want to use that same term because it's your own fantasy and you want to use a different word, which makes sense, you know. Let's look for a different word for, like, non-witchy people. Oh, so we're deciding to use a word that already exists. Sure, why not? Okay, let's hear it. They just called Naomi a slur. We all make choices. But that was a choice.
We all make choices, but that was a choice.
At least make up a new word. Don't use something like normie and call that a slur. You know, I feel like using slur kind of implies a history to it, and it doesn't feel appropriate to take a word such as normie and then just call that a slur. It's a bit ridiculous, and honestly, to me it seems kind of offensive, maybe. I was offended. I had to read that. Anyway, off to even more annoying things about this book. So as I said already, this is supposed to be an adult romance book. Emphasis on it's for adults, right? It's an adult book. Well, so that kind of makes sense for the main character to be as horny as she is, because even if the sexual tension is noticeably and inappropriately forced into every single scene that she has with love interest, at least we're gonna get some great steamy payoff and get some good scenes out of that, right? Yeah. No. The entire basis of the attraction between the main character and her love interest seems sexual and physical. And that is not inherently bad or wrong, don't get me wrong. But then, you know, when they finally get around to doing it, which is kind of the thing that the main character has been anticipating for the entire book, we fade to black immediately. I'm sorry, what? An adult romance book, where the attraction is mostly sexual in nature, we do not get a singular sex scene. If that is not the most disappointing, pointless thing, I don't even know. Like, what? You're gonna deny us the payoff of this romance book? It just doesn't make sense to me. Now, speaking of disappointing whippy climax events, let's talk about that knockoff Triwizard Tournament thing that I already mentioned. So there are several challenges that these people have to do, and then, you know, who wins the most wins, obviously. And the first two challenges are somewhat interesting in concept, as they test the physical skill and strength of the contestants. However, even that turns quite boring, because we only get the first person perspective of Emmy. And Emmy's just kind of there. And looking at what the others are doing, because she's the referee in this thing, so we don't actually get to, like, she doesn't participate in it, so we don't get to participate in it. We just get to, like, watch what some random people are doing. I feel like this book could have really benefited from splitting the POV between Emmy and her love interest, who is also a contestant. So, you know, it would, for once, be able to, like, see both of them falling for each other, and, like, also in scenes like this, it would have made more sense, to me at least, to get the perspective of somebody who's actually participating in what's happening, and not just, like, standing around looking at them. But anyway, after these physical, somewhat exciting competition of strength and skill, you have two more, right? And you ended on 2 rounds of trivia. Yeah, that's right. The epic last challenges of this tournament. The climax of the book is trivia. And I mean, I do get why the author does it. Like, it makes sense for the themes and whatever, but I won't spoil that here. Just, at the end of the day, it's anticlimactic and boring. I'm so sorry, but it's so boring. Like, it just doesn't feel like that this is supposed to be the climax in the end. It's just boring. Now that I've kind of complained about mostly actual stuff about the book itself, let me just complain a bit about the themes. And this is a personal problem. I'm aware of that. Unfortunately, the themes were just not my cup of tea at all. Like, this book is very much about rediscovering your roots and falling back in love with your hometown and the people there and whatever. And I'm not going to say that this cannot be very healing and important to some people, and that this isn't, you know, a good narrative to have. But it's just very repulsive to me personally. I absolutely cannot relate, because my feelings on this matter are quite the opposite of that of the main character. So I didn't even like the ending or the themes, really. So that was another point that just sucked for me personally. I think that's about it. I just really wanted to complain somewhere, and just, it was quite cathartic to, like, let all of this out, if I'm being honest. Also, if you did like this book, please tell me about it. Like, what did you like? Did you like the characters? Did you like the challenges? What stuff do you agree or disagree with me about? I would love to know, because I honestly really had high hopes for this, because it is quite pretty, and, like, even the premise sounded interesting. But then it just wasn't. And this wasn't not just boring, because I read the other book, Lost Girls, similar, you know, similar stuff like revenge, sapphic, bonding to ruin a guy's life. Both of these do that. And this one was just plain boring. I gave this one 2 stars. But this one, on the other hand, I just really actively disliked, and I had to like really suffer through every single page of this. Because at some point it didn't feel like I could stop now because I'd gotten too far, but then I just couldn't keep reading because it was just so wordy also. Like, oh my god, it just kept going and going. I was like, please just release me from this pain. But yeah, I finished the book, gave it a confident 1-star rating, and I'm glad it's over. And I'm glad I've sold both of these because I will not be keeping them as I didn't enjoy them. Sucks to be me, I guess, because I picked these out for my October reads. I know it's not much, we don't talk about that. But yeah, unfortunately just not my cup of tea. And I guess that is actually it for this review. Yeah, I am still cold, I still have a headache, but at least I have not talked about that book I didn't enjoy.